Hey guys, welcome to the Tail Slate podcast, a podcast dedicated to you independent filmmakers out there and all you movie lovers. As always, I'm your host Farid Khairan, joining you from our YouTube channel. And also, as always, I'd like to present my amazing co-host, Toby.
Hi.
Hi, Toby. And for today's show, we have a really special guest. He's an actor, a musician, a photographer, a rather suave man, if I may say so myself. Safian.
Hey, thank you for having me, guys. And I'm really excited to start this thing.
That's right. Safian is an actor that both of us have had experience with on the various shoots that we've done. He's acted in a lot of projects. He's had a lot of on-set experience on them. And we're just really delighted to have him on our show today. So, to kind of start off, I just got something I want to bring up to you guys. Just as something that's been going around in the world of cinema, and that would be a man by the name of Tom Hardy. I'm sure you've heard of him. You know that Capone movie that just is coming out right now?
Yeah.
By Josh Trank.
By Josh Trank, director of such classics like Fantastic Four, or Fantastic as I believe it's called.
And Chronicle.
And
don't forget Chronicle.
too.
Chronicle is good. I enjoyed that.
That was really good. I saw that in the summer of 2012 or something. It just blew my mind. I was like, you can make superhero movies like that? What? And then I saw Fantastic, and then I was like, you can make superhero movies like that? Wow. So anyway, I've been thinking a lot about this film because when you see the trailer and you just see what Tom Hardy's doing, I don't know, from an acting perspective, it feels like the guy is turning it up to 11 and just like going balls out, you know what I mean? Like, there's no filter. Like, his voice is all like, you know, and he just, like, and I just want to throw this over to you guys, like, because to me, I feel like he's one of the few guys that can pull that off, you know?
Yeah.
And, what do you think? What kind of actors do you think can actually pull off something like that, you know?
When you say something like that, you mean like what?
Mumbling?
Yeah, like mumble. No, like just doing that kind of over the top performance, but making it work. Like making something that's out there.
I mean, Tom Hardy's definitely really good at grunting. We've seen that over the years and all that. But he's definitely one of my favorite, working actors for sure. I think he's one of those actors that demands attention, and no matter what the film is, once you see his name attached to it, you're immediately drawn to it solely for that reason, even, you know. And now he's fantastic, man. I mean, the dedication that it goes into those roles, you know, not only physically, but just, you look at the Baines, you look at the Bronsons, you look at, like, you know, Outlaw, whatever it is, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's like, and I think he also like upstages a lot of actors. You know, like he's always like, I saw Revenant, and I was like, that was meant to be DiCaprio's show. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna eat a bison liver and like burn my throat using the magic of CGI, but burn my throat. And yeah, and it's like, but then Tom Hardy shows up and he's like, I'm talking to you, don't talk about me, I'm talking. I'm like, well, okay, that's like, it just completely took over that film to me. You know,
it's like, I think. It was one of these round table discussion things. Like, I don't know whether it's Variety that puts them together, but I remember Shia LaBeouf saying about his experience with Tom. That
on Lawless, right? On that
yeah,
Lawless
but he
movie.
says, he's like, I come in there and I'm ready to do my thing, but once Tom Hardy's on set, you know whose set it is immediately. He'll
yeah
piss in the corner and stuff like that. Yeah. Figuratively speaking, of course. But
True. You know, he actually knocked him out. Like, Shia actually apparently knocked Tom Hardy out cold on that shoot.
Yeah.
They had, like, some crazy.
Yeah. He said it was like a little... It started off like play, but he kind of, like, connected.
That's right. Not the nicest slumber party to have, I would think.
Yeah.
I wonder then, like, from all of the characters that you've had to embody in the past, like, have you ever felt that incentive to kind of go to that level? Like, if we're talking method, like, I'm gonna, like, literally transform myself and live in this guy's shoes for however long. Did that ever cross you as a method you want to approach?
It's okay. So I haven't had the pleasure of kind of having that sort of a role that demands that of me yet, but it's something that I really would like to try. Because it frightens me completely, and I think I don't know. I just haven't been to that place yet, but it's definitely something that I really want to do when the time's right. I have a lot of practice to do. I need to improve a lot, but yeah,
Yeah.
you know. But I love being
Yeah.
on
Touche.
set. I love being on set, man. And you know, everybody I've
Yeah.
worked with so far, I've been fortunate to have good experiences so far. But
Yeah, that's really saying something because you worked with me once
yeah,
too. So
yes,
I mean,
yes,
wow,
you know,
really
wink,
really
wink.
honored by.
Send me your contact
Wink,
details
wink.
later. Yeah.
You got that Vimeo page, bro. You know it. So no, but like and Toby, you worked with him too. So it's okay. It's interesting to me then, because like the on-set environment that say for the two of us who are like indie filmmakers and also at one point film students, and it's like there's a certain openness to that environment, because you're working with filmmakers who themselves are discovering their voices and like figuring things out. So have you ever been in an experience where it's kind of like the opposite of method, where instead of like knowing that one thing you've got to be as this guy, it's like, have you ever been like, what, I'm just gonna let myself completely be swept away by the experience? Because like these filmmakers, a lot of these guys are quite young and they're very much still figuring things out, but do you still find it in you to give them that trust of like, take me guru, and show me the way?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think any work that has any bit of longevity on attached to it is founded on trust, and I would not be comfortable doing or working with somebody that I don't trust a bit, even if it's not them directly. It's I have to trust their vision and their work. I know the first one
Yeah.
I did was I think it was Earl with Thibaut, who also went to
Right.
you know
Of course. One of our good best pals.
exactly,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think that was a role that for me I felt very personal with that one, because it was something I could relate to, very strongly. And I think the way I worked with Thibaut was that, we talked at length about, like our upbringing and all this stuff and just my thoughts about it. And he guided me in a way that it felt like I was just exhaling when I was on set. It wasn't anything I had to think about too much. And it felt natural,
He also, I think, what this makes me think about is, if you actually look at him or even me or with Toby, I think because we're at this starting out point, where we're not working in an industry already, and we're not very much integrated or assimilated, I think it's often great just for filmmakers and actors out there to have that, I would dare say, almost personal connection before cameras are rolling, and and it's not just to do with the material; it's also to do with the human element. I think when you're
I agree.
at our level, that level of trust, I think what really helps is having those sit downs. I mean, Safian, you're like a pro at finding the best coffee places in France or in Paris. I mean, goodness, I went back like 6 more times after that one. Yeah. So much cappuccino, yeah. And I just thought to myself, because we made a music video together, which was just like this very loose kind of visual piece, just of y'all having with some college kids having a good time. And even for something that was like low on narrative as that, I think just for that experience to truly be wholesome, it's always great to kind of just be like, hey, let's just get a beer, or let's just talk and get to know each other, like beyond just that project, So it's less of a, it feels less like a burden or a chore. It's like, no, I'm doing this for a buddy, and that's great.
Absolutely, yeah. No, and then you always find that the atmosphere is it's a lot easier, or like amicable, and everything works well.
Yeah. It's great to hear you say that, because like on that particular shoot, just full disclosure, I literally improvised every single shot. Like,
Hey,
got
listen,
on set, I was like,
we were ready.
like, okay, great story. So in that shoot, right, so because there was no dialogue, but I had to have them shoot some stuff, and speak some stuff, and I would just shoot in 60 FPS and do it all in slow-mo, so we don't actually hear what they're saying. So I was like, all right, Safian, and there were these 2 other actresses who were playing like his friends in this college, this little like the student flat, whatever, and I was like, all right, guys, you're having a good time and you're talking, and then I'm just like focused on the camera. And man, Safian just gave us his life story. Like, he told us, like, so, when I came here for the first time, and I went through, and I was like, I should be filming this. This is like a biopic that I'm missing out on right here.
That's so funny. I don't even remember that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I got the rushes. I tell you, man. I tell you. I mean, it'd be pretty unconventional. It's like imagine if the whole Gandhi film took place in like a, I don't know, like a restaurant or something. It's like taking like this grand story and putting it in this small space. Would have been hilarious.
No, we have fun.
Yeah. Actually, I'm just gonna bring this up real quick because I didn't earlier. I hope everybody's doing safe and sound. I mean, this extends to our listeners. Like, I think it's something we need to address now at every episode. Just stay safe, wash your hands, watch. This is the time to watch as many pretentious films as you can in one sitting. The time to do it.
This week is German Expressionism Week.
See, when I said pretentious, I meant this is like Farid Kairon short film week, but that's just as pretentious. So
yeah.
They're fun.
Perfection. They're not gloomy.
German Expressionism is fun. I don't care who you are. Like, yes. Okay, Nosferatu, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Especially those 4-hour ones, huh?
Oh, yeah. Dr. Mabuse the Gambler. Why did I force myself? I don't like it.
No, those are great. I mean, as a catalog. Actually, Safian, I that actually makes me think of tone a little bit. Like, is there a specific type of tone that you're more gravitated towards as an actor, as an artist? Like, this also goes to your music. Like, what kind of brushstrokes do you see yourself kind of painting?
I think anything that's introspective. Definitely, I like. I know I'm a lot more drawn to maybe darker, mysterious characters that I'm just trying to figure out more about them, character development. I enjoy that a lot. Things like True Detective season 1.
Yeah. Put me in there. I'll act as like Tumbleweed. I don't care. Like, that thing was. There was a lot of Tumbleweed in season 1. There was a lot of Tumbleweed. You could have been Rust Cold too. Don't do yourself down, man. I could see
intense.
You just sitting there with your like beer cans, like, we tell ourselves as people that like we're born together in one race, but we should walk hand in hand to existence together.
All right,
I can't do
it.
All right.
Oh.
But for some reason, I don't see you in Interstellar though. For some reason,
I don't like space anyway, so y'all can keep that.
It's like you as like that character just in that like bookshelf, just being like Murph. I just for some reason it doesn't show in my head.
Yeah, no, but definitely with film, it's I do like some good character development. Maybe like drama, mystery. It's and we did like another. It's funny working with like Toby on like another
Toby short film.
Yes. Yeah. Shout out to Toby. That was really interesting for me because right on the surface I think, okay, this is an interesting script, and I can see like the fun of the comedic side of it as well, and I just wonder how I'd be able to translate the character properly, because I don't know whether I feel comfortable enough to do this well enough for Toby. And when we were on set, man, no, we had a lot of fun. And then when he played it, or when I actually watched it and it was edited and everything, I saw it the first time when they screened it at the Cinematheque, and I was so pleasantly surprised, watching all those pieces being put together as you wanted them to be, that the like comedic beats, they really hit. And editing is essential, man. That thing it changes everything.
Yeah. In that film, it felt like it was shot in a way that's for the edit. I think a lot of the best filmmakers always shoot for the edit. They see the movie playing in their head, And so I think, and when you're doing comedy, I've never really done comedy per se, but I think it goes without saying that the rhythm and the timing one finds in editorial, it has to be kind of organically infused into how you actually shoot the thing on the day. And if you watch that film, there's an abundance.
Okay, I was gonna say, is that something, shooting with the editing in mind? You think that's something that's learned, or is that something that some people just kind of get more naturally than others?
I'm curious about Toby's take on that, but before I get to your take, Toby.
The movie. Because I actually made the thing you guys are. I was just gonna wait for you guys to take a pause, and I'll be like, fantastic.
Yes.
You all are completely wrong. It was all luck-based.
Hey, go on. The floor is yours.
We just pressed record and life happened.
I do think that some of it is innate. I think that if you are somebody who understands the basis of narrative storytelling, which transcends just cinema, as a medium, I think to understand how something plays out in a sequence, whether in a literary form or musically speaking, even though I'm like just completely zero on that department. Tried learning the piano till the age of 8 and quit. And but in the case of but in the case of film, right, I think that if one is inclined to shoot movies and make movies, I think inherently you do start to play imagery in a sequence, in a Eisenstein type thing in your head. And for comedy directors, I think it's all but impossible to like look at a page of script and see a beat or 2 lines of dialogue between 2 characters or whatever and not imagine, I think if I just went to the 2-shot in that moment, or if I did a close-up in that moment, it'll accentuate the humor. And these are, I think that even if you don't acknowledge it on set, you'll just be thinking, the best filmmakers at least think that way. And then occasionally you end up with like a Brett Ratner who doesn't think at all and makes, X-Men The Last Stand. But, Toby, how was your, to go to the man himself, what was your process like on that front when you were making that?
We just hit record and things fell into place magically. We had only started pre-production a day before, and it worked out perfectly. The end. No.
What advice do you have for young filmmakers?
Thanks
like
Toby.
Pick up a camera and start filming, and you don't need a pre-production or anything. In fact, don't even do casting. Safian just walked in the bar that day, and we were like, great, let's use him, and it worked out fantastic.
Yeah, had some free time.
For the real, though, it actually was a lot of, there was a lot of editing in my head throughout the process, and there were some things that eventually changed in the editing room because you can't predict everything, and some things on set, which just blocking-wise, would change, or an actor would do something like an extra, and I'd say, oh, you know what, I really like that, and I want to see more detail on that. But usually I had a very solid image in my head of how things were going to play out, how we're going to cut them together. For those who don't know, the film deals a lot with time travel and going back to redo the past.
Yeah.
So that definitely helped with the setup because we didn't have to move a lot. We could have the same camera position for like 5 scenes, which was great, but you'd have to plan it out a lot, and especially on how you were going to talk to the actors so they could do the exact same thing every single time, except for the time traveler, who she'd be... how does she have a different reaction? How is she going to look different and stuff? Mm-hmm.
There were some nice push-ins as well when you were showing how she was affecting her. Even in your like, I mean, this goes with any film really, but especially if you're putting that extra attention, like you can use movement to accentuate whatever emotion you want that actor to display.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I had a rule which was zooms were used for anything magical, and dollies were used for anything which was emotion, like actual real world.
Okay.
Were there zooms in that movie? There were no zooms.
Yeah, there were
zooms.
Shot, though. There were.
What? When?
When when she goes back in time for the first time, and we pull out, that's we used a dolly, but we also used a zoom lens for that, so we could have both.
Oh, so a dolly zoom, like the
a dolly zoom, but
okay.
That usually if you have from my experience, if you have a zoom while a dolly, it ends up just becoming a zoom instead of really a dolly.
Right. It depends what you want. I mean, yeah, I think that's a great tool to use to differentiate those two. When you said you talked about zooms, like, and it made me think just the standard zoom lens, which is not so in fashion as it used to be. It still kind of is. Like Kubrick, Nicholas Roeg, these guys were obsessed with the zoom, and they used it in like their more fantastical films. Like The Shining is loaded with zoom. I was seeing The Shining the other day. It's like every other shot is like a zoom. And Walkabout, Nick Roeg's movies, they're all Don't Look Now. They're all about that. Safian, I wonder, based on what Toby said, do you pay attention to where the camera is on set? Like, do you wonder too? Because I heard like Joaquin Phoenix talk about that. Like, he doesn't care where the camera is. You know what I mean? There's like, it does its thing, and it's just a dance that's unspoken. But do you your process, is it like that, or do you wonder like, okay, if it's closer, maybe I got to do it this way or such?
So basically, before obviously you're aware of where the camera is, but once you get to it, I don't think about it. I just I act out what I think I have to act out, and get some feedback from the director. However, we had there was a workshop that ACAR put together one time, like this actors triangle thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that being our film school, ACAR. That's
Yep.
the film school we went to.
And
Yes.
and no, they the people that we worked with, which is the director and the cinematographer, they put an emphasis on the actor's ability to know where the camera is, and also how that'll affect your performance physically. So depending on the lens that's being used, your movements have to be less exaggerated. The slight movement could be more emphasized than if it was something that was like a wide shot. And so after that workshop, I became a lot more aware of it. It is like an invisible dance is going on, but you have to know what it is that you're working with to and be able to give the better performance, or just be able to manipulate the camera.
That actually that goes back to the original story of why I cast Safian in another shot in the first place, because Safian plays the boyfriend in the film, the one who dumps his girlfriend.
Yeah,
and
he plays a guy he plays a guy who's at the end of his rope in a relationship and wants to call it off, break it off. That's
exactly
basically.
And as I was casting people, actors would keep coming in and they'd like play the boyfriend, and it's like in this argument, and they would always yell and scream, and I kept coming over and they're like, hey, you're in a public place, and your character right now, he's someone who doesn't want to make a scene. Your character is very self-conscious. He always feels like people are watching him, so he has to be on his best behavior. So when he does yell, it's going to make more of an impact. But right now, and they'd say, okay. And then, again, it would be yelling and screaming. And Safian was the only person who came in and could play a conversation, who was obviously very angry, was obviously in a very tough position, but he wasn't going to yell. He just could play it so well, like this intensity without like making a scene. And it was that's what inevitably won him the part.
Appreciate it, man.
I guess that's where some of that I like to play complex characters shows up, huh, Safian? So getting some layers, as Christopher Walken would say, you got some layers.
That's hilarious.
No, so you you have to wonder that, actually, like how that, there's many facets to a character, and in the heat of the moment on set sometimes, because on student films with a 1,000 euros budget in France, where you have 3 days to shoot and only so many, because it's actually in many ways harder to do than a more kind of securely backed feature film, as much as that's also incredibly difficult. And so in the heat of the moment and time constraints, you find yourselves in a like Shakespearean monologue scene where every emotion has to be on point, and you don't have much long to kind of accurately have a let's talk about this type discussion. That's almost, if you had time to rehearse, that's where those are had usually. But I wonder then on set, because my take, to give you my perspective on it, if I'm on a very chaotic set where things are not working out, which is every set I've ever been on, and it's I always find myself at some point telling the actors, all right, that was good. I like that. Just 20% more, please. Or go 3 notches down. Or give me a 5 beater. And it's I start talking numerically. I start being very kind of just very quick with what I have to say. And I wonder, Safian, if you've had to, if you've been in that situation, and if you kind of do acknowledge that can help you in some way, or do you find that you still need to have a different take? Have you been confronted with that situation where a director just is okay, give me just this,
Yeah, no, I mean, yes, I have been, but again, like I said earlier, it's I've been really fortunate with who I've worked with so far, because the way they get the message across to me is it's really easily digestible. It's again, you're sharing and you're telling a story, so. Yeah, you could say, sometimes it's maybe just a little bit more energy there, or slightly lower. Or what helps me more is just talk to me about the character, where he's at, where he or she's at mentally, what the surroundings like, what's happened before that, backstory, and just character building before you actually get onto set. I think is really important, and that helps.
Yeah.
That helps
Yeah.
gauge and center things, and that makes it easier for me to do what I have to do.
Do you do like the Heath Ledger thing where you write a journal and maybe some of your
I
thoughts
know
that your character
I
has?
haven't written any journals, nah, man. But like, definitely, you take notes for sure.
I was gonna say that that's actually something a lot of film students should understand, because quite a few of them, sometimes they'll write a script and the characters won't really make sense, or they won't really follow through on why the character would do this, and they feel like people are being tough on them whenever they look at their scripts and say, I don't understand this because of this and this, and then they avoid these questions. Inevitably, their actors are going to ask them about it. They're going to ask about the characters. They're going to want to understand them. And if they haven't thought that through far enough, then your actor isn't going to have a lot of work with.
I think like sometimes that comes down to like a lack of just life experiences. Like you read something that somebody's written and you're like,
or you watch a movie.
You're like, I hear, yeah, and you're like, I see what it is that you're trying to do, but this is not realistic. This is not how this would play out. Not that there's one size fits all kind of way to go about it, but you feel it.
And to add to that, like of life experiences and stuff, like I think often you don't really take the time to get to know yourself, to know your understanding. Like recently I was writing this script, and the first draft I was very disappointed in. I was writing it for another director, and I couldn't understand why it wasn't working. And then me and the director, we called for a bit and we went over it. And now I completely understand was when I was writing it, I didn't actually believe the argument I was putting forward, like the message of the script. And coming to acknowledge that and then addressing it and dealing with it, I was actually able to write a script that I'm actually happy with.
Yeah.
Guys, actually, I've kind of arrived at a personal conclusion when it comes to sort of the actor-writer. Because especially if you're dealing with a writer-director, that kind of auteur vision, whatever. I have come to this. First off, I always viewed screenwriting as a combination of a real literary art form, but also kind of a blueprint. I think there's a very fine line, and it depends on the filmmaker, it depends on the material. Like, I would never call Paddy Chayefsky's script for Network a blueprint, I'd never call anything Sorkin writes purely, because it's so much of it is dictated through the prose, But I will say this, when it comes to actors interpreting material and wanting to collaborate on expanding, not only on, like, okay, what's his backstory that's not in the script, but I want it for myself for the day, but also, what if I could, like, do this into the plot, and that changes like David O. Russell on American Hustle, he literally had the Christian Bale, and he just, like, literally invents storylines for the whole movie that affect the narrative on the day because he was purely interested in the characterization before the plot, for example. But I've kind of come to a personal thing where I feel like at the end of the day, like, we call the editing room the final rewrite, but I honestly think it's that one-on-one with the actors that's like the second last rewrite, where really that's the, like Paul Schrader is credited as one of the co-writers of Raging Bull with another writer whose name escapes me. The final draft of Raging Bull was pretty much Robert De Niro and Martin Scorsese's work.
Right.
I mean, that's known. And so if you look at, I mean, have you guys, like, Safian, have you heard of Mike Lee's movies?
Mike Lee, no.
Yeah, he Naked, Secrets and Lies, Mr. Turner, that biopic. He's made Topsy Turvy. He's made great movies. What he does is he goes off with his actors for like 6 months and literally invents the characters with them as a collaboration and their entire whole thing. Like, and then based on those crazy improvisations, he literally makes a movie from the ground up and writes a script that's not at all. It's just completely done from accumulating all of what the actors gave to it. Wong Kar-wai is quite similar. He literally spends years on a movie just like improvising with actors and finds a way to get Chungking Express or In the Mood for Love into a movie that's great. And so I've always viewed it as like maybe the most essential relationship on a set, especially if you also wrote the thing initially, is that actor-director thing where that's really where you can rectify some of those issues, say, you would have in prep, or
Absolutely.
in script, where it's like, okay, yeah. So you abide by that then, I'm sure. I mean, I think it's an actor's dream in a way, right?
Yeah.
Just to be like, okay, I'm in this world with you, and we're really going on this journey.
Bro, there's nothing better. I mean, preparation like that is, I think, it's anybody's dream, you know, for you to come on set with all these things, this character, you know, their flaws, goals, you know, fears, everything's innate to you. And so at that point, you know, when they say go, it's just, you know, you've arrived already, you know, and it's easier.
Something I want to add to that is like you can see that with really good TV, where sometimes they'll write a character because, okay, this is the archetype, the way they have it thought for its function. And as the season will progress, the actors will become more and more part of that character. They'll know what that character will say and do.
Yeah.
I mean, Raging Bull, obviously Martin Scorsese is going to be very thorough, and Robert De Niro is going to work his ass off to put his most into that character. But sometimes in a film, since it's only 2 hours, an hour and a half, they may not fully explore the character. While a series could go for a very long time. One of my favorite shows of all time, Community, with, it's created by Dan Harmon. I love it. But originally, in season 1, they thought we're going to pair Donald Glover and Chevy Chase together because they thought that, this old man and this young man are going to have, like, quite a bit of banter and stuff. But obviously Chevy Chase, as if you've seen the stories and stuff, he wasn't very He's
not the nicest guy.
Yeah, Chevy Chase, if you know the Community behind the scenes stories, wasn't exactly really fun to work with on that show because it was long hours and they'd shoot up late into the night, and he was not a fan of that. And so he became more and more difficult to work with. Even at some point, they started using body doubles to hide him, to replace Chevy Chase.
No way.
Yeah, they did. If the first time they did it apparently was an episode where they parody Pulp Fiction, and they have Chevy Chase supposedly in the GIMP suit, but it's not him. It's another actor, and they voiced over it because they were. And then they just did it more and more often until eventually got rid of him in season 5.
So you put the GIMP suit on.
This guy has been a nightmare to work with since like National Lampoon. We only have Home Alone guys because, yeah, Chevy Chase was actually with the Chris Columbus who directed Home Alone. They were making a movie together. I think it was one of the National Lampoons, and then they got into like a fight, and Chris Columbus had to leave. And then John Hughes was like, hey, by the way, I have this script called Home Alone. You want to make that? And he was like, sure. And so in a way, we have Chevy Chase to blame for what Home Alone turned out. So maybe
lots
there's an
of people
upside to...
like Home Alone.
No, I'm saying that as a compliment.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I'm saying it as a compliment.
Okay, yes, that's right. You better watch your mouth.
I actually prefer Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. Who doesn't want a McDonald's and a Toys R Us to themselves in a hotel? You know, Toby, I mean, also about TV is it's a very strange system for actors. I mean, having worked in TV actually on a number of productions, just seeing the treatment on set, and also hearing like Anthony Michael Hall and what's his face, that incredible actor from The Wire with the scar. Someone help me out.
Scarface?
No.
Al Capone? Tom Hardy?
No.
Josh Trank?
No, not...
Oh my god.
Yeah, Ed Sheeran. No.
Lisa Cardarelli.
Edward Scissorhands.
I'm gonna get his name because he's a great actor. And Michael Kenneth Williams. Got it. Michael Kenneth Williams. And he was doing an interview for Inherent Vice, which he was in for with PTA, and he had a small role in that. And he was shocked by the process of movie making, especially with that level of director, because they have all the sweet time in the world to discuss the character and get into the role. When he was shooting TV, he was saying that they just cracked the whip. It's like bang, bang, bang. You got to get through like 10 setups in a day. You're gonna go back to that old episode and get that close-up they need for that because they didn't have it. Like it's just running around. And I think that the other thing is that beyond that, just working with developing with the characters, it's really true that they start to actors inevitably will start to get a feel for the essence of the inner life, and that'll keep going and evolving through the seasons and such. But the thing is, they're also completely at the mercy of the writers. You know what I mean? Like if in season, like, they don't know, like there's not too many heads up, surprisingly. So by the time you get to season whatever of Game of Thrones, and it's like, oh, you're gonna be doing that, and it's like, well, I gotta work with that, and now it's suddenly. And writers aren't always the greatest judge. I mean, they're writers for a reason, but it's not always going to work out. So a lot of times actors have this, you can often even see it in the role, in the acting, where it's like, you do not want to say that. Like, you don't agree with what you're saying. Like Mark Hamill in the Last Jedi, which I liked his performance, but you can kind of see in like this, he doesn't agree with anything he's saying.
He every time you saw him, he would just call him bullshit on everything. He's just like, yeah, man, let's wrap this up.
Exactly. The best one though is in episode 9. There's, because Palpatine comes back, so there's a line early on where Oscar Isaac is talking about where he has to tell the last of the Resistance that Palpatine has returned and he has gained power, and because nobody brought this up once ever in the 4.5 hours of footage they had before in the movies from the previous, the previous ones, like the way he says the line, it feels like he's like choking it out, because it's like, why am I saying? It's like, yeah. Somehow Palpatine returned, and it's like you can almost see like the investors like, yep,
new coat of paint, new action figure.
Man, they had Baby Yoda come through and just do some damage control real quick.
Yeah.
That helped. I haven't seen the show, but even my mom was like, "Son, Baby Yoda is the cute." I was like, "Whoa, this is traveled."
You guys hear about Baby Nut? I'm sorry, I'm taking this in a side tangent, but have you guys heard of this, Baby Nut?
No, we have not.
So Mr. Peanut, a while ago, he died. He died in a terrible car accident to save his friends. Okay, let me see this real quick. Mr. Peanut death. He died in a car accident to save his friends. This is a mascot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's a mascot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a mascot. He's not an actual person. No.
No, I don't think he was a real person. I don't think Mr. Peanut is a real man. Or I wouldn't.
He's the planter's. He's the planter's mascot, and they decide to kill off their mascot, and he died in a traumatic road accident, and then they brought him back as Baby Nut because a teardrop landed on his gravesite. And the internet did not like him for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, what the hell is that?
Yeah, I mean, dude, I didn't even know. I mean, like, that's not even that's like something you get on a cereal box, when you want to show your kid, like, for breakfast, like, say, have your like I don't know, like Kellogg's, Count Chocula or whatever, and it's like there's a little story in the back to keep them interested. It feels like this, like. Anyway, I want to transition from Mr. Peanut to Stanley Kubrick. Actually, a very natural transition, very seamless, and I want to bring up because I wanted to bring this up with you, Safian, as an actor, because look, there are many kinds of directors in this world. Okay, there's a Cassavetes or a Chiron who's all about, let's talk about the person and who they are. We share a birthday, by the way, which is why I said that. And and then you have the visual directors. You have directors who are masters of the form and of the image, like Kubrick, or heck, I mean, I'd even say Zack Snyder.
I was just about to say that, but I'm gonna let him say it. There you go.
Yeah. The genius visual stylist. I mean, that guy draws every frame. But the thing is, what Snyder has that I can't believe I'm putting Kubrick in that same sentence, but I'll do it. I love both of them. How dare I? Hey, Watchmen's as good as any movie. Anyway, so the thing is, Kubrick has been criticized for being cold in the past. He's been criticized for being artificial, and he's been criticized for not giving his actors the kind of direction that helps in the actual inner life and figuring out the character. It's all about, know that mark, feel horrible, I'm gonna bully you by making you do hundreds of takes, but not in the way maybe Fincher would, in a much more, from what I've understood. Of course, that's not a bad thing, it's just a matter of approach. But a lot of actors actually have come out saying they don't like how Kubrick directs them, or rather, they don't like performances in their movie, like Robert Duvall.
They're not saying it now because he's dead, but...
Well, no, I mean, but if you watch, if Robert Duvall has come out on record and said, you watch Kubrick's movies, he thinks the performances are terrible. The Shining is, for me, a perfect film, but I understand understand if someone's like Nicholson was too much, you know. And so, what do you think for? This is more of like a hypothetical advice type thing.
Yeah.
What do you think, Safian, as an actor? I mean, if you come across a director who's quite a aesthetically driven, because even me to some extent, I would say I'm more of a visual person on set, and I'm always in that. But the thing is, for you, like when you're dealing with those kind of directors, what would you try to say to them to maybe encourage them to be like, can you maybe shift your focus to like how I'm doing, my character's doing, like what would be that process to kind of sway them in?
It would obviously depend, but I think once you gauge, you're like, okay, this keeps going and going, and I don't feel like I'm adding much, or I don't feel like we're going anywhere with this. Then I try and take him to the side and just be clear and be like, look, this is how I'm feeling. Again, I've come into this, and I'm assuming that before we get into this, there's a level of understanding and trust there. But if you don't feel comfortable, then ask for guidance. And most of the time, I'm assuming that would come. But if it doesn't, at the end of the day, you're there to do a job as a professional, right? So you do it to the best of your abilities, and you're following the lead of the director. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah. So you'd also, so it's another example of if that tends to happen, and it's like you'll just adapt to the experience, I guess.
Yeah,
like just,
you have to be able to adapt.
Yeah.
You have to, I think.
Totally.
At the end of the day, we're trying to make a film, right? So, hey, if the director's at the helm and he has a vision, then
that's what you follow.
Yeah, let's see how we can put this together.